welcome to Anime Audio Commentary. Today I'll be commenting on episode 11 of Don't Toy With Me, Miss Nagatoro. If you'd like to watch along, then start watching now. So, last we left off, things were kind of in a tenuous situation. The art club president was none too happy about everything that was going on, and so she sort of, dropped the gauntlet, as it were. You know, Senpai wants the art club to exist, he's gonna have to have a really good showing with his own personal portfolio. Now, you know, considering all the still life stuff he's done, he might have a significant repertoire, but considering that Nagatoro and everybody is just still sort of hanging around and taking up time and space here, you know, I feel like his prospects aren't exactly good. So, you know, it's interesting how that whole drawing Catgirl Nagatoro thing has gone right out the window. I mean, I guess Senpai has to take things especially seriously now. Oh dear. So things are actually really serious now. You know, Nagatoro and her friends are actually willing to help. I mean, whether or not their help is actually worthwhile, you know, that remains to be seen. Oh dear. Yeah, you know, it seems like Senpai really has his work cut out for him if he's going to be doing this essentially on his own merit without anyone else to help him in any meaningful way. Man, and you know, if this whole art club thing weren't bad enough, for Nagatoro, it seems like she has some actual competition here. You know, Senpai, despite everything, really seems to like the club president. You know, this isn't good. I feel like even if this whole conflict is sort of centered on Senpai and him maintaining his club here, I feel like there's going to be a bit more conflict in terms of Nagatoro trying to compete for Senpai's affections. You know, I have to say that self-portrait is a rather bold idea on her part. Oh dear. I guess understandably, Nagatoro is none too happy about this. I do have to wonder why a school would allow something like this to be displayed. It seems to me that that would kind of be in violation of school rules. I don't know. So notably, Senpai is talking a lot about the artistic merit of the art and the technical details while sort of deftly avoiding the subject matter. So naturally, the idea comes up that if they're going to compete with the club president, then they're going to have to fight fire with fire. But at the same time, that sort of puts Senpai in a bit of a risky situation. Obviously, he's going to have to draw it. And, I don't know if he can draw a live model in a pose like that. Even if the participants were willing. Oh dear. Yep, there's the comparison. Nagatoro's lacking in proportion, shall we say. It's probably for the best that somebody other than Senpai sort of brought up that disparity. Otherwise, I feel like it would have actually become a big conflict. Wow, that's an evocative phrase. If this were a Cold War, she has the bigger arsenal. But it is interesting that Senpai seems to be bristling at this entire conversation. Alright, there we go, Senpai. You have found your spine. Man, that's a pretty loaded statement. Nagatoro and the president have their own charm, so despite being considerably slighter of frame, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Yep, there we go. There's the big bombshell, If you want to compete with the club president, you're going to have to do something drastic. And it seems like they've been preparing in a weird kind of way. Man, so it seems like the stakes are pretty high, He's going to have to contend with the possibility of not having a club. But I feel like he's also going to sort of have to get out of his comfort zone here if he wants a reasonable chance of surviving. Man, I feel like Nagatoro's just sort of doing that to lighten the mood. But at the same time, it almost seems kind of half-hearted the way she's trying to tease him a bit. I'm wondering if her heart's really not into teasing him because she's so busy trying to help him. Obviously Senpai is far more dedicated. Although, I guess to her credit, Nagatoro is helping out and sort of posing in a bathing suit. You know, that's a fair bit of dedication in her own respect. You know, it's nice that even though she's sort of being put in this situation and Senpai's struggling with things, she's not really making fun of him for being a perv. You know, she's just sort of, being kind of supportive here. Man, she's really not playing around. She is serious about helping Senpai out here. You know, it's nice that she's working really hard to inspire Senpai to sort of get his artistic juices flowing, but I feel like maybe she's taking a slightly wrong approach here, you know? It's not working so far. I don't know. Like, I feel like there's another approach she could take that would make things easier, but you know, it's interesting that it seems like the core of all of Senpai's problems is that he really doesn't have much of a spine. You know, he doesn't know what he wants to do. He's not willing to tell people who bother him to piss off. At the very least, it seems like his heart's in the right place. You know, he doesn't want to drag Nagatoro into his problems. You know, unfortunately, it seems like it's not necessarily up to him. Now, this is actually an interesting development. You know, Nagatoro's actually mad at him and, like, seemingly actually mad. It's weird how the shoe's on the other foot, because normally Nagatoro's the one who pushes him too far. And to be fair, it's not like he was pushing, but it's unfortunate. Oh dear, it seems like something underhanded is afoot here. And I get the feeling that it might have to do with Nagatoro or something. You know, Senpai seems to think that this is the president's doing. She's sort of preparing things for the gallery. Well, you know what? Maybe that's true. I was expecting some sort of hijinks. But I guess with all the peace and quiet, relatively speaking, Senpai is now able to paint and get some real work done. Granted, he's still just sort of doing the same still life stuff he was before. And, you know, there's only so far you can get with still life, I feel. You know, I have to wonder if maybe there's a bit of an ulterior motive behind the president's artwork, considering that she seems to like painting portraits of herself naked. So I guess despite that, the president has a bit of good advice here, you know. Trite, boring artwork. Like, it just doesn't matter, you know. Nobody cares about something that's boring, that's just sort of there. And in a roundabout way, she's sort of saying that all of Senpai's artwork is uninspired and not made with love. You know, I feel like Nagataro's sort of walking in as rather serendipitous, like you need to have love to your artwork. Voila, here you go. Well, there we go, President. Finally doing something kind of good. I feel like Senpai couldn't, do this of his own accord when he feels he has other obligations, but if the president commands it, then he must obey. I'm kind of glad that the president put it the way she did. You have to chase after your muse. So the real question is whether or not Senpai is actually going to say something meaningful or just something sort of trite. He's not exactly good at thinking on his feet here, but I feel like if he were to say something like, you are my muse, I'm prepared to paint you properly, then, the two of them could get down to business in earnest. Ooh. Man, that was kind of mean. Uncharacteristically so. Well, I guess Senpai is in for a penny, in for a pound now. If there's already going to be consequences, he might as well stick things out. It's kind of interesting how Senpai's thinking about all of this, about, how much grief Nagatoro put him through, and even after all of that, he's still willing to do something. It really indicates to me that despite all of the hardship, and maybe hardship is a bit of a strong term for it, there's something here that's ultimately kind of worthwhile. And maybe I'm overanalyzing what is essentially a seasonal anime here, but I don't know. I enjoy it. I feel like it's worth dissecting a little bit, even if it's not this grand thematic magnum opus. I do like how as these flashbacks progress, they gradually become, I guess, nicer, for want of a better term. It's less about Nagatoro picking on him and more about the good times they've had together. I feel like this is also a little bit of a callback to that previous fitness episode whereby Senpai is now forced to chase after Nagatoro in practical terms, and greater fitness would definitely help him out here. Alright, there we go. An earnest confession. I want you to model for me. I'm saying this of my own volition. Here we go. This is gonna be something real big. It's not like Nagatoro is incapable of swimming or anything, so she's in no real danger, but nonetheless, Senpai, he just springs into action. There we go. I feel like this is almost like a verbal duel Whereas Senpai's sort of making this argument, Nagatoro's refuting him, and he's sort of forced to improve and reiterate his reasoning here. You know, because I feel like she knows he's right, but she wants to hear a little bit more before she's willing to relent. So just like that, they're sort of back to being playful again. And I feel like this would almost be like a circumstance where she should be embarrassed, but that she's not seems to me like it's a good sign. So it seems like Senpai now has finally gotten rid of his artistic block, that even after being doused in the pool, he's sort of back to sketching immediately. That's a good sign, in my opinion, because I've been subject to that on occasion where once I get inspired, you know, I just have to start doing stuff. Ooh, Senpai, you sly dog. He's not playing around anymore. You know, regardless of how embarrassing it is to both of them, he's just going out and saying the quiet part out loud, as it were. You know, I think it's kind of gratifying that they're both seemingly equally embarrassed about all of this, but that despite everything, Nagatoro sort of takes the initiative to tease him just a little bit. Alright, well that's it for this episode. If you've enjoyed it, then by all means, tune in for the next one. See you, Space Cowboy.